Hi everyone, welcome back to PCS 101. This is for our class for Tuesday, the 8th of August. So as you know, we have completed speech number 1, and if you sent me your outline, then I would have returned your outline to you as well as your feedback for speech number 1. So if it turns out that you have not handed me your outline yet, please do so because I'll need that to evaluate your speech. And if you're curious as to what today's attendance question will be, it will be about speech number 1, where you will be asked, and I'll review this again at the ending of this video, but you will be asked to watch all of the speeches of your peers. And then I'm going to ask you to send me via email so that we can maintain privacy your feedback. I'm going to ask you to give briefly one strength and one weakness for each of the speeches. I can compile all of that data and then present that to the class as a whole. But in terms of where we are is getting ready for speech number 2. Now that we have completed speech number 1, in part because I wanted everybody to get to know one another a little bit better. And also I wanted you to put into practice some of the techniques that we've been talking about in terms of putting together and ultimately delivering a speech. So, speech number 2 is an informative speech. It happens to be my favorite speech out of all of the 3 speeches. I like all of the 3, but I particularly like the informative speech because I get to be a student once again and I learn an incredible amount of information. Basically, your job is to teach the audience about something. And this time, rather than 5 minutes, you have 10 minutes. So you have twice as long. You'd be surprised how quickly 10 minutes goes when you're trying to teach somebody something. And this is going to be due next Tuesday on the 15th. So you've got a week to prepare for this particular speech. And you are going to be asked to use at least one audio or visual, something that I will be talking about today. So basically, for the informative speech, and this is in chapter 12 of our textbook, it gives you some ideas. If you're using the same edition I'm using, on page 196, it offers some ideas about topics that you could discuss for an informative speech. You could talk about famous people, for instance, so you might want to highlight an individual who's famous, or perhaps you want to talk about a locale. And it could be something that's very near and dear to us. So if you wanted to tell us about the history of Greenfield, for instance, keep in mind that audiences tend to be interested in that which is applicable to them. And since we are all students at Greenfield Community College, that makes a certain level of sense. But of course, you can talk about any locale in the world and things, events, ideas, procedures. So, lots of different ways that you could go about the informative speech. I usually recommend to students, especially in condensed classes like this one, to choose a topic that you've already have some familiarity with so that you don't have to spend a lot of time doing research. So it could be just something that you have personal knowledge of. It could be something that perhaps you learned about in another class or are learning about in another class. That's another way of proceeding. Or it could be something that you mentioned in your autobiographical speech that you could turn into an informative speech. Some informative speeches are explanations where basically you tell the audience. Some are demonstrations where you show the audience how to do something. And some are a combination of the two. I've heard many informative speeches over the course of my career, from speeches about how to, let's say, make a particular recipe. So if you are a cooking show fan, you'll know that you've got to have everything prepared in advance, and it requires a certain level of skill because ultimately you need to condense the amount of time that you would be spending in actually making that particular recipe. I've heard informative speeches about sports, about actors, about media stars, about things that you might have personal interests in or perhaps are related to your workplace. I remember one informative speech that was very popular with my students. It was given by a car salesperson, and he was talking about how to negotiate a price for a car. Let me tell you, everybody was listening with rapt attention, myself included, because this is something that all of us need to do at one point or another. And of course, we were getting some of the behind the scenes secrets. And I'll never forget, this was an in person speech. And eventually, we ran out of time and we went on a break. But he continued to answer audience questions just because he was a kind person. So he did that during the break, even though the evaluation was over. Obviously, audience questions are a little bit trickier when you are recording your speech. You want to try to the best of your ability to try to anticipate what some of the audience questions might be so that you can address them in your speech itself. And also, you can always invite your audience in the comment sections below your speech to post a question and you can answer it. A couple of suggestions that I might have for you to limit your points because you don't want to overwhelm the audience with information, especially in just 10 minutes. And we've already established that people have poor listening skills and poor memory skills. Use transitions. Make sure you're using connections between ideas. Avoid jargon, specialized language that's associated with a particular discipline. Assume that you have a general audience. Cluster like ideas. So we were talking about this as a memory technique that oftentimes is used so that people can remember greater amounts of information, where you are grouping like pieces of information together, which is oftentimes the way phone numbers are memorized, if we still need to memorize a phone number. I remember the days when we used to. Associate new ideas with old ideas. It's an old teaching trick, oftentimes used in math classes, for instance, is that you build on skills. Use repetition. And the idea of repetition is that that's one of the ways that our memory works. The more often it's exposed to something, the more likely it is to remember something. So chances are in an oral speech, you'd use repetition more than you would in, let's say, a piece of writing. Address different learning styles and that we all learn differently. And certainly you know that colleges focus on oral procedures with offering information and written information. So chances are that you all have skills in those areas because you're in college. But it's, if you've wondered why teachers use things like whiteboards or why I post the notes underneath the videos, is so that you can hear and also read. But there are other ways to learn as well. You can learn through actually tactile knowledge, actually doing the thing. This becomes a little bit more complicated in a traditional classroom setting because you have so many people. This is when you've got a demonstration and you need to plan for the idea that you're going to have different speeds of audience members completing particular tasks. But it can be done. I oftentimes tell students to think about how they might proceed with directions. That might give you an idea about your learning style. That if you like maps, you probably learn visually. If you like to hear the directions told to you, you probably learn orally. If you'd like to read out the directions, I do, then you probably learn through reading. Or perhaps you are the kind of person that needs to go to that location once and you learn through doing in that particular instance. And then you can always remember that location. And chances are you've got learning styles all over the map, bits and pieces of each of them. But again, when you're trying to offer your audience information, try to offer them as many possibilities as possible. If you think about our class, not only are we reading about speeches, not only are we talking about speeches, but we're actually giving speeches ourselves and listening to the speeches of others to try to address all of those learning styles. And motivate your audience. Sometimes your audience doesn't need motivation. Sometimes they do. I think about the speech that I believe I shared with you a few classes back about the Heimlich maneuver, where the student had actually staged a choking prior to their speech without any of us knowing that it was staged, in order to increase our desire to learn about the Heimlich maneuver. It worked quite nicely. We obviously had motivation to listen to the speech because just minutes earlier we were in a situation where we needed to use that maneuver. Of course, when you're trying to shock your audience, sometimes things can go wrong, so you need to think about this carefully. I know very well when I teach my Shakespeare classes, I've got basically an entire semester to try to motivate students that what they're learning is applicable to them, even if they aren't going to be English majors. And I hope that I'm successful by the ending of the semester, talking about universal themes and the human condition. You've got 10 minutes to motivate your audience. And again, there might already be motivation within there. I had given the example of the used car salesperson where everyone was listening with rapt attention. Another speech I listened to, and it was a live speech, it was conducted actually in the GCC parking lot. And the speaker showed us how to change the oil in our cars in 10 minutes, no less. And again, people were listening with rapt attention, myself included, something that all of us probably need to do or want to learn how to do. And of course, there was a backup plan in the event of inclement weather, so obviously they wouldn't be able to demonstrate. So you need to think about all of these things for your informative speech. So, audio visuals. It helps to reinforce the information that you are sharing with the audience. This is chapter 11 in our textbook. You can go low tech, high tech, or something in between. So something like using a blackboard or a whiteboard obviously works very nicely if you wanted to jot down a quick idea during the speech itself, or perhaps if you had some sort of technological difficulties so that you were forced to use something like that. Pictures work very well for emotion, for emotional connection. Again, you have to think about how you're going to display those pictures. And again, you have to think about whether you are delivering your speech live. So you've got to think about things like scale. Or in this instance, whether you're recording your speech and what is the best way to display that particular picture. Do you hold it up to the screen? Do you have another screen behind you and you're manipulating two pieces of information? Posters can work very well too. Keep in mind that we assume a certain level of professionalism just because everyone's got computers. So the days of scribbling something on a piece of paper are pretty much over. Props can be very useful. Again, you have to think about scale and visibility. In your particular instance, you have to think about how visible that would be on the screen. Video or audio clips can be very helpful as well. Think about balance. In a 10-minute speech, you probably don't want to devote more than 3 minutes, and even that's on the high end, of using an audio or a visual or a clip. Now, certainly if you were delivering an hour speech, then perhaps a 10-minute clip might be appropriate. But certainly in a 10-minute speech, you don't want to deliver a 9-minute video clip because the whole point is that you're delivering the speech. Things like PowerPoint, which is usually people's go-to in terms of giving information. I'm not averse to PowerPoint, but if you've ever seen PowerPoint go wrong, you know all of the different ways that PowerPoint can be misused and abused, whether it is something just as simple as technological failure, and certainly you don't want to panic in that moment, especially if you're giving a live speech. You can't just stop. You're going to need to adjust to the best of your ability. Remember, there is no such thing as the perfect speech. Or it could be that someone is overusing PowerPoint, so they're using that in lieu of actually presenting the information. I've seen that many times. Or the information on the PowerPoint slide is too dense. It's just supposed to be keywords and phrases. Again, it's not supposed to be something that the audience is reading. We're listening to you. Or what I call, just because you can, that doesn't mean you should. PowerPoint and all of the electronic options that you have for sharing information give you lots of possibilities, but that doesn't mean you should use all those possibilities. Every font size and every font color, for instance, it's just too busy, too difficult for the audience to absorb. Flip charts are basically early PowerPoints. I don't know if any of you have heard of flip charts before or even have memories of them. They were large pads of paper that were basically on easels where an individual could basically the speaker could show each page at a time at the point in which the speaker wanted to share that information with the audience. So it was a kind of early sort of PowerPoint. Handouts can work very well, especially if you want your audience to leave with certain information, phone numbers, websites, or perhaps confidential information that an audience member might not feel comfortable writing down, something like a suicide hotline, for instance. Even on Zoom, there is a screen sharing function, and you can record that as well. But again, some suggestions: you want to be professional. You want to test your equipment beforehand. You want to be prepared with a backup plan in case there's mechanical failure. Numbers translate very well into charts, diagrams, so that we can visualize. Pictures, as I had indicated, translate very well in terms of emotional connection. You want to be clear, you want to be simple, you want to be neat, you want to make sure that the scale is visible for your audience. You want to have balance and proportion with the length of time of your speech, because you don't want the audio visual to overwhelm your speech. You also don't want to do the opposite, have an audio visual in the background and never address it. Use color, but merely for interest. Don't overwhelm your audience. Avoid writing everything in all capital letters. Certainly you can highlight a word or a phrase, but I don't know if you've ever had the unfortunate situation of having to read a paper written in all capitals. I believe all English teachers have, myself included. It's a very difficult thing to do. And studies have found that bolding is more visible than outlining. So that says to me, or perhaps to you, that if you really wanted something to stand out for your audience, you would bold it rather than underline it, or perhaps both. Again, keep in mind that the audio visual is supposed to supplement, not replace. So I do remember a speech I heard a while back about, and it was actually utilizing PowerPoint. Most of the screen was devoted to the PowerPoint, and then there was just a little square of the person's face. It should have been exactly the opposite way around. This is a public speaking class. We want to see your face. You can have a small square PowerPoint, but you want to, again, make sure that you are delivering to your audience. So supporting material. You're not required to use any outside resources for this speech. As I had indicated, I encourage you to talk about something that you already have some prior knowledge about. But it could turn out that you might need to do some research. And in fact, you will need to do research for your third and final speech, the persuasive speech, where I'm going to ask you to use a minimum of 3 outside sources. So I thought I would briefly talk about this. This is in Chapter 6, though we'll revisit this when we get a little closer to Speech 3. Using supporting materials increases your credibility. It increases your persuasiveness. It's one of the reasons why I'm requiring it for the persuasive speech. You want to make sure that you're checking for accuracy. As you know, anybody can post anything on the web, and artificial intelligence, I don't know if this is the correct term. They've been talking about how it tends to hallucinate. In my mind, that means lie, but it's not accurate. And that's quite dangerous, actually, for a whole host of reasons. So I don't necessarily want to get into a discussion about the negatives of artificial intelligence, though what a fascinating persuasive speech topic that might be. Nevertheless, I do encourage you to rely on library resources, especially college library resources, and you have one at your fingertips, the GCC library, that you can access the electronic elements of it from any place in the world as long as you are a student at GCC and you have a ID number. I urge you to take advantage of that. And the library has databases, which basically look like websites, but they aren't open to everyone, which means that not everyone can post on them, and it means also that not everybody can read them. Databases are subscription-based, usually much too expensive for an individual to subscribe to, but it's something that an academic institution could. And the reason why they're subscription-based is because they hire staffs of readers to verify the information. Not to say that things can't go wrong. Things can always be misstated. I always urge everyone to fact-check everything, particularly in today's day and age, which has become so complex. But there probably is a higher level of validity to a database than what you would find on the wide open web. I'll never forget how someone made a comparison between the web and a database and talked about how it was similar to unsafe and safe sex, believe it or not, saying that the open web was like unsafe sex. You'd probably be okay, but do you want to take the chance? The database was like safe sex, a lot more protection. Could something go wrong? Yes, but it's much less likely. And I always remember that. Interviews count as supporting material. You would have to be interviewing somebody who has a certain level of expertise, obviously. You're not just interviewing somebody because they're convenient. But certainly, you want to make sure that you are showing ethics when you are interviewing somebody, that you are very clear with them about how you plan to use their information, that you have permission to do so, that you have permission to share their name. If not, you're giving them a pseudonym. And think about all of the different ways that individuals can be persuaded. There is qualitative supporting material. These are anecdotes. And there is quantitative supporting material. These are facts. And I think both of them have a certain level of validity. Ideally, you would do a mixture of both. Ultimately, things like anecdotes, for instance, individuals' feedback. Think about Yelp feedback about individuals' experiences. But there also is quantitative, factual data. For instance, things like graduation rates at a college or a university. But I don't think that tells the whole story, which is why we have things like class evaluations as well. Primary accounts are first-hand accounts, eyewitness accounts, and they have a certain level of validity embedded within them because the individual experienced the event, but there also is the possibility of bias, which is why you have secondary accounts, which are based on the primary. This is usually something like research or scholarship. And again, a mixture of both are very useful. So again, I'll talk a little bit more about supporting materials as we get a little bit closer to the third speech, but I wanted you to be aware of this and some of the library resources in the GCC library in the event that it turns out that you did want to do some research for speech number 2, an informative speech. So what am I going to do next class? Next class, I will have posted our second quiz, and it'll be very similar to the first quiz. 20 questions, mostly short answer, some multiple choice and true false perhaps, open book, open notes that you would return to my email via PDF because that's how my grading program works best. And that would be Ruiz, R-U-I-Z, at gcc.mass.edu. Next class, I'm also going to be posting 3 sample informative speeches from students like yourselves. These would have been speeches in no way connected to GCC that were posted on YouTube. That will be your attendance question, where you will be asked to watch all of the informative speeches and to give a strength and a weakness, much like you did with the first speech, the autobiographical speech. And you are also going to be asked to contact me for a practice consultation. And to do so before speech number 2. If speech number 2 is due on the 15th Tuesday, that means you should contact me by the 14th Monday. That is the last date in which you can contact me. You can start contacting me now. You can contact me for an email or a chat or a phone or a Zoom consultation or some combination thereof. It could be as simple as you're telling me what your topic is or sharing your outline. It could be as detailed as you're actually delivering a draft of the speech to me so that I can give you my feedback, or anything in between, whatever you find to be useful. So what's left for today is the attendance question. As I had indicated, that your job is to watch the speeches of your classmates, which would be posted in the speech number 1 folder, and to briefly indicate one strength and one weakness of each speech. Please send that to my email, again, to maintain anonymity, and that's Ruiz, R-U-I-Z, at gcc.mass.edu, and I'll compile all of that and share that with you. Please have that in by Thursday the 10th at 9 a.m., though if you need an extension, please let me know. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well, and we will continue on next class with a quiz, some sample informative speeches, and basically preparing ultimately for speech number 2, our 10-minute informative speech, where you are asked to use one audio or visual. Certainly you can use more, but I stopped counting after 1. Take care. Bye-bye.